All right, guys. So, this is a latest development concerning the Maiduguri disaster. The government has not been up and doing in responding promptly to flood management, and I would like you to watch this critical analysis about this whole situation and drop your pick in the comment section below. Okay.
With us, you're welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Well, what do we call the sudden change in narratives by government about this week's flooding in Maiduguri, from the collapse of a dam to a river overflow and the ubiquity of climate change? Were adequate preparations made and all protocols adhered to regarding the possibility of flooding at this time of the year? And how can the tremendous loss of lives and property be averted going forward? For a close look at all of that and more, we're now being joined from Arise Abuja studios by Dr. Michael Enahoro, a flood expert and social commentator and country commercial manager of Advisors AG. Good morning, Mr. Enahoro. Good to have you join us.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you indeed. How are you too? All right.
Not too bad, not too bad. I hope you're keeping warm and dry.
We're trying. Thank you very much. All right, let's talk about the very sad event that happened in Borno State in the course of the week. Definitely, as many people have attested to, one of the worst that we have experienced in terms of flooding in recent times. But there are confusing sort of explanation as to the cause of that flooding. People had thought, and it was being reported initially, that the Alau Dam had an issue and was the main cause of the flooding. But the Honorable Minister for Water Resources and Sanitation addressed the media yesterday saying that there was no collapse of the dam and that what happened actually had to be the overflow of the river as a result of climate change. But many lives have been lost. Many people are still missing. The nation is basically mourning. The Vice President has been there and things have not improved substantially. What is your assessment of what has happened? Are you satisfied with the explanation from the Honorable Minister? And where do you think we are in terms of preparation for this sort of, tragedy?
Thank you very much. It's very unfortunate that the events that happened are a culmination of some exacerbating activities that are driven, not primarily, they are driven also by the impact of climate change and the weather patterns and erratic rainfall. But unfortunately, in this event, you would find that this was an occurrence of the month of August saw almost 14 consecutive or 15 consecutive days of very high rainfall. So there was excessive water coming through from the month of August. And the rains in September are supposed to be the high peak month for rainfall. So if you take that as a basis, and then you begin to deal with the fact that you now have an overflooding situation. Let me quote the minister. If you have an overflooding situation, the dam should hold, but if the Honorable Minister in his wisdom says that there was overflooding, then that is the story. So if you couple that with overflooding, and then you now have the urbanization effect, whereby drainages, storm drains, and levees and the natural floodplains that used to be able to retain water have now been urbanized and there are infrastructure on them, but not the right type of infrastructure. We have not improved our flood management infrastructure from when this happened in 2022. And if you go back before then to the massive 2012 event, this area has seen a lot of urbanization in that time, but very few investment in flood management. So again, we need to take a good look at this situation because this is also affecting smallholder farmers. They are getting a double whammy out of this because they've invested their money, and this is the high point where they're expecting returns, and they're beginning to grow food for the rest of us. So there's a stress on food security because that area is a belt for Nigeria's grain production. And now that's happened, and now the farmers themselves are going to be out of pocket again because of the losses due to the strain of not having access to farmland. So again, it's a big problem for Nigeria, and Nigeria doesn't seem to have taken this situation, and we've learned and planned effectively enough since the events of 2012 and 2022. And I don't think we have the right infrastructure in place right now, and that's just a problem we begin to see.
Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about preventative measures. Looking back, could more have been done to mitigate the extent of the damage caused by the floods? In terms of disaster preparedness, how effective are Nigeria's early warning systems for floods, especially in areas like Maiduguri? We look at how these systems can be improved to better predict and respond to flood risks in the future. You've spoken about weak infrastructure. What specific infrastructure policies or community-level interventions might have reduced the impact on lives and properties of the victims affected?
Well, Nigeria has to start taking a serious look at the whole Allow Dam story. That's number one. Because again, if this is supposed to be our corresponding first line of defense, we need to do more in that area. So infrastructure improvement must happen. Levees and big areas where we can rechannelize water, rechannelizing the water, knowing that this is the path we have learned, we've got satellite imagery, we've got a lot of work that has been done by the Nigerian Hydrological Agency. Those guys have told us as far back as early April in the 2024 annual flood outlook. We knew this was coming. We knew. It's not something that took us by surprise because one of our agencies has said it's coming. We should have indemnified farmers, and we should have created alarm systems in terms of putting them loudspeakers in every town, in every areas where siren can be blown, and then emergency information via text and telephone calls, automated telephone calls should be created. And so that everybody is forewarned as to what those type of things are. What are the evacuation points in terms of the state, so that we don't clog up the roads that's not built? Is the Nigerian army ready to begin to airlift clean water to people right now who are stuck on top of roofs and houses and communities that are highland and they can't move? What is our plan? We need to have a national strategy for dealing with this because climate change is here to stay, and this is going to happen again. So we need to have an active engagement of all strata. It's not just policy-driven. State governments have a role to play. Local governments have a role to play. Agencies must continue to talk to each other. If we had the flood reports as far back as April, and this is what happened without adequate response plans, then something is wrong somewhere.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that you've brought out this flood report because the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency released this 2024 annual flood out.
Once this overflow happens, at least the first line of defense of the water is that it will not break its banks until that is overflown. So those are all defensive moves that we need to start making immediately. And those investments are not small investments. That's why I'm saying this has to be a national discussion where a certain set of short-term and long-term actions can be agreed to, and state governors, local government, and the citizenry can be held responsible for fulfilling their portions of what we need to do. Even private sector, they can't continue planting and lose. They are responsible for ensuring that their farms have dikes so that they can contain water. You know this place is going to flood at some point, so there should be wells all over the place to take as much water as possible off the topsoil. These are the type of instructions that we would need to now share with everyone. We are all responsible for this. And that is why I'm saying there must be a national emergency outlook.
Boundary nature of floods. How important is international cooperation between Nigeria and Cameroon in managing the risks that are posed?
I think those type of conversations will not make sense. Because there is supposed to be a corresponding water retention system. So even if they are going to release this, we know it's going to be released, then we should put in the investments on the other side as well. Because now what are we going to try to tell them to do? Because the same rains that hit us hit them as well. They've got their water retention system, and if that is going to overflow, if I use the Honourable Minister's words, if there is an overflow on their side, you can't stop it because this is the rainy season. Structural investment on our side, so that once that is released, there is,
flood warning system within the country.
Yes, we do. Surprisingly enough, yes, we do, because I had to do the research on this. Yes, we do have appropriate warning systems. The question is we've not implemented the last mile in most areas because it needs investment in preparing the last mile. Loudspeakers are supposed to be everywhere in most big cities that are on the floodplain system in place, but now we need to now start making it a rule that we must warn once Nimet